This is my 2009 Infiniti FX50. Under the hood, it's naked, so it's not very pretty. I understand that. However, it is pretty accessible, and I need it this way because I'm still doing some troubleshooting for some issues that I had. Today's video, however, is going to be focused on engine oil. So let us identify those parts that we shall be interacting with. One, we need a gauge. We need to know how much oil there is in the sump. So we need an engine oil dipstick for that. And when you come closer here, you'll see that it has engine oil written on it. We like that. Pull that out, get a reading. It gives you an idea as to how much oil you have or you have lost. And depending on what you see or what you don't see there, you might need to add some oil. We do that through the oil filler neck. So you remove the oil fill cap and you add oil in there. So checking oil in itself, I agree, does not really need to be recorded on video, but today's conversation is going to be on a topic a little higher than just checking the oil. It's on oil consumption. I'll explain it in a bit, but for now, let's go ahead and do this. This vehicle has been sitting in this position overnight. I've not started it, moved it at all. It's on fairly flat ground, which is the best way to check oil, really. So let's go ahead and do it. Pull this dipstick. And the reading is a little dirty. Let's flip this over. It's cleaner that way. And when you look closer, you'll notice that oil is about halfway between the L and H points. When the dipstick is this way, inserted into the engine, the way it's usually mounted, that's halfway between the top level and low level. That's the maximum and minimum recommended levels according to the people that designed the engine. And from our experience with other Nissans, we know that the equivalent quantity between those two levels is 1 quart. So right now I'm half a quart low. Last time I did this on video, well, I usually check my oil very frequently. Not every day, but I'd say at least every week. But I actually set a reminder in my vehicle because I wanted to see at a certain mileage how much I would have consumed. So 1,500 miles ago, 1,500 miles ago, I had changed my oil and I made sure the oil was at the top level. So that means in 1,500 miles, I've lost half a quart. If you're following the math, that means that in 3,000 miles, I should lose about 1 quart, right? So the entire, basically, oil should be at the bottom hole. Now that's important because 3,000 is an interesting number. That was a traditional recommendation to change your oil. And if I took my car to get its oil changed, they would just take out whatever oil and then put oil back in. And usually I've noticed most commercial shops usually overfill a little bit. So they overfill it and you would never really know that you've lost oil, which is okay. The problem comes in when we do things with good intentions. My oil change interval is usually around 5,000 miles, maybe 6,000. And I keep an eye on my level, right? If I lose oil, right now oil is somewhere in the recommended band, so I don't really need to freak out and add any oil. However, if oil were to fall below that, I need to make sure that I do something about it. You could get into trouble because the capacity of this vehicle this engine is 6 quarts. About 6 quarts. So I've lost 1 quart. That's not too bad. Now, let's talk about the trouble. The trouble is that if you extend your oil changes a little longer than that and you don't know how much your engine actually consumes, right? They do sell those oils that can go for 10,000 miles. Those nice synthetic lab designed oils that can do 20,000 miles, for example. If I'm losing 1 quart in 3,000 miles, that means in 10,000 miles, well, in really 9, right? The first 3,000 miles, I've lost 1 quart. When I get to 6,000 miles, I've lost 2 quarts. 9,000, I've lost 3 quarts. Now, losing 3 quarts out of a 6 quart engine, that's a little risky. And if you're doing the math, hypothetically, if you just kept going, if I bought one of those 20,000 mile oils by 18,000, I should have lost everything I have in the engine. But the crazy thing, the goofy thing about engine oil is that it's exponential, in that you lose a little bit initially, and the less you have in there, the more you actually lose. Does that make sense? In that by the time you're getting to 10,000, if you have not added any oil, you're actually losing at a higher rate than 1 quart per every 3,000 miles. We could talk about that later, but for now, it was just more of a way to come and look at it and just say that oil consumption does happen. And for the Infiniti FX50, this VK50VE engine, mine has 218,000 miles. I'm not going to guarantee that everybody else's engine is going to do that. That is how much consumption I'm getting. And as I said, it's not a surprise because I've owned Infinitis, Nissans, I've owned so many different vehicles, and all of them consume to some capacity. Not just the V8s on the Nissan side. I actually owned V6s back in the day, the Maximas, the i35s and things like that. They all consumed. I owned a Lexus, consumed. Mercedes-Benz consumed. The only engine that did not seem to consume any oil was actually a Jaguar that I owned. And people talk about reliability, so it's just an interesting thing to talk about. So again, this is not just a discussion about checking your oil level, which you should be doing often. You don't need a reminder, you don't need a video for that, but I set 1,500. This is a modern car, it's a 2009. There's so many different ways to set reminders. You could set an oil reminder, you could set an other reminder to check your oil just in case you're busy. But the reason I do things like this is that I want to have a baseline and a rule of thumb, so that even if life gets so busy, as it does for most adults, right, and I cannot check my oil every day, at least I can have this mental calculation that, hey, at the 3,000 mile mark, I need to make sure that I have a quart of oil somewhere around here. For now, nothing to worry about, and we shall get back to work later, okay? All right, all the best, stay safe, keep your engines lubricated.